Welcome to what happened on Saturday with Marlon Kerner. My name is Josh Cormier. I did show up today for work, even though didn't necessarily want to talk to my good friend here, Marlon. I'm always joined by my co-host and star of the show, Marlon Kerner, former defensive back for the Buffalo Bills, and more importantly, this week especially, former co-captain of the Ohio State Buckeyes. I'd ask you how you're doing, Marlon, but I think I already know.
I'm doing pretty well, Josh, as you already know. The bigger question is, how are you doing? Because if I
Well,
remember correctly, you were like, I'm going to be sad after Saturday. And I just kept saying, we shall see. It's a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
football
You
left. We
you
shall
were a
see.
little more measured than I was. I was weirdly confident. I'd watched them play the first three games, and it was the first time in a long time as a Notre Dame fan that you walked in thinking you had the better quarterback. All those
Right.
games with Ian Book. I mean, God love Ian Book, but Ian Book was never the better quarterback in any of those big games against Alabama or against Trevor Lawrence. We were always the team with the offensive line and the tight end, but not the quarterback. And I thought being at home and having the 6-year quarterback, I thought we had an advantage there, and I thought that our defense was going to match up well. And it still feels like a game almost 48 hours later to me that Notre Dame lost as much as Ohio State won. Full credit to Ohio State. Their defense played great. I thought that their scheme was really well designed and really well executed. But man, if you're Notre Dame, I mean, you should have ended the game like 4 separate times. There's a 4th and 7. DJ Brown dropped 2 interceptions, the second one being just maddening. There's a
Brutal.
third and 18 after the intentional grounding. And then, the obvious 10 guys on the field, the last play of the game that we're going to get into. And I'm really curious to get your perspective as a former player on how, when the coaching staff messes up, how the players react to that. But I'm going to cede the floor to you. And let's do your 5 key takeaways of the week. And you can either start with Ohio State, Notre Dame, or you can end there.
I think we'll end with Ohio State Notre Dame. I'll go with number 5. And I want to give a big shout out because I always like to look at special stories that happen within the realm of college football. And there's a young lady named Haley Van Voorhees, not to be confused with the Van Voorhees or Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th
Yes.
series. Although it was a massacre, the game was a blowout. Shenandoah University won their game 48-7. But I got to give a props out to Haley because she became the first female non-kicker to play anytime in an NCAA football college game. And she came in, they were up 26-0. So I don't want to point out that it was up 26-0, but they brought her in to rush the quarterback. She plays safety. I was watching her play. She moved around. She did some stunning. She was like showing some blitzing, and she got a quarterback pressure and then a tackle on third down for a stop and turnover for a loss. And I'm just like, it was amazing just to kind of see her get in there, do what she did, being a female, only about 5'4", 5'5". So it's pretty amazing just to see her get in there and play, and the confidence that they had with her to play safety. So looking forward to seeing what the junior can do going forward. If you didn't see a good football game before the Colorado game came on and before Ohio State and Notre Dame played, there was this game down in Death Valley between Florida State and Clemson, and it had the makings of a fairy tale storybook ending. If you don't know, there's a walk-on kicker named Whites. His name was Jonathan Whites, and he could have had the feel-good moment of all of college football season with Florida State coming in undefeated. Clemson, when I say they dominated, they flat out dominated Florida State the entire game. This is a game where Florida State didn't have a lead at all. At no point did they ever lead. So here's the backstory on Jonathan Whites. He was a walk-on. He played from 2019 to 2022, had another year eligibility. There was a kicker in front of him. He figured, hey, I'm not going to play. He was taking classes, online classes for grad school, was set to leave, I believe, to go to New York City to start an internship with one of the financial services organizations there. Got a call from Dabo Sweeney and said, hey, our kicking situation is not great. I know you have your eligibility left. We'd love to get you back in town. Have you been kicking? How are you doing? Brought him in. He did some good kicking. They brought him in to be the kicker for this game, specifically for this game, because the kicking situation had been abysmal up until this point. He comes in, kicks a field goal to get the scoring started off early, makes his 2 extra points. He has a chance to be the hero. I mean, this is the stuff where you talk about, you dream of as a kid in any position. When we're shooting baskets, when you think about basketball, you're counting it down. 5, 4, 3, shot goes up. The ball switches through the net at the buzzer. He has a 30-yard field goal that he can make, and he can be the hero. And he misses. And the game goes into overtime. and Florida State wins a toss. They get the ball, and then Keon Coleman catches the game-winning touchdown in overtime. Also, Keon Coleman was a Michigan State transfer, so Big Ten fans should be well aware of who he is. Transfers from Michigan State, goes to Florida State, catches the game-winning touchdown, and Florida State stays undefeated and stays in the top 5. And so I love it. And then I will say, before we talk about Ohio State,
let me stop you there and ask you 2 questions based on those first 2 games. First of all, what do you think the players' reaction is to a female player in the locker room? What do you think that's like?
Honestly, we don't really care. I think we understand there's some situations that come up to play, like, okay, she's not going to be in the locker room, so she's going to have her own specific locker room where she's going to go. She can shower, get changed, get dressed, do all those things. But we're going to treat her the same. Like, it doesn't really matter. She's going to earn the respect by coming out there doing what all the guys ask her to do, what the coaching staff asked her to do. So are they going to be a little hazing and say, can you hit? Can you do it? Can you show this is what the big time football is all about? Yeah, guys are going to see what she can do. But I looked her up. I looked at her profile. I mean, she's jacked. I mean, she was ripped. She looks like she's put in a lot of work. Like, so definitely you can tell she put in the work in the weight room to say, listen, guys, anything you can do, I'm going to do the same thing. And so we don't go and think about, well, she needs to be able to bench press a certain amount. She needs to be able to do this. She's also runs track for Shenandoah University. So, she can run. She has a little bit, some wheels. So all she had to do is show she can run. And then it's kind of, okay, let me see her football IQ. Can she line up where she's supposed to? Can she grasp the checks that we need? Because she plays safety. So there may be some checks she needs to make. There may be some things and some adjustments that she needs to be responsible for recognizing and seeing. And she can do all those things. I don't really care. Like, if she's a girl, how big she is, whatever it is, if she can come out and help our football team, then I would welcome her. And I'm sure the guys on Shenandoah University and anybody else that I play would say the same thing. Like, yep, as long as she can help the team, I'm all for it.
So in that same vein, then, what was your feeling on kickers? Was it difference in college to the NFL, like high school, college, NFL? Just talk me through, as a guy who'd line up and, really work their ass off during a game. What was it like watching the kicker come out there and shank a 30-yarder to win it?
You don't think too much about that. You kind of go through, like, they got to go through the same mental things. I will say, that's probably one of the toughest positions to have, because you either the hero or the GOAT. And it's always going to be 50-50 on whether that kick is going to go. So you just hope everything is clean. You hope the snap is clean. You hope the plant foot gets down. You hope the process and everything that you're supposed to do, people step in. There's no pressure. There's no gaps or anything that could really be exploited by somebody's doing the wrong thing on the process. And then you say, okay, he's going to give us an opportunity to win. I think going into it, the coaching staff, the players felt he gave them the best opportunity to win. He didn't make it. So now it goes back to us on the defensive side of the ball to get stops. So you can sit up there and point the finger. I was never one to point and say, well, the kicker should have done this, or if the coach had called this. That was never my MO. Was always just take responsibility for what you did. And if you didn't play well, say I didn't play well. And I'm sure White's was saying the same thing. Hey, listen, it was a simple kick, something that I probably made a lot of times in my life. And he missed a kick. It just happens. Sometimes it happens like that. I felt bad for him because I really wanted to see it end with the fairy book story. But sometimes it doesn't end that way. So the question is now, how is he going to respond this week? Because I'm sure he'll get an opportunity to come back and kick again. Will he let that kind of hang over him? And will he have kind of an experience where he lets his past dictates his present? And that would be a bad thing, because he can get in a really bad slump. And so if I'm his teammate, I'm saying, hey, dude, it's over. Let it go. We can't change that. There were plenty other opportunities that we could have won that game. It should not have come down to just you making a kick. It did. We put that on you. You didn't make it. Okay, no biggie. We could have stopped them in overtime and got the ball back, and our offense could have went on down there, and we could have given you another opportunity to kick and be the hero, and they didn't. So you could go, there's enough blame to go around, and they'll look at the film and fix that. But yeah,
did you have teammates?
Really I wanted him.
Did you have teammates that hated kickers? Obviously, there's that famous Peyton Manning, Mike Vanderjagt feud where he called him the idiot kicker and all that. Like, were there teammates, or is that more of like a stereotype from like the 70s where everybody, oh, the kicker's not a football player, blah, 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 blah?
I think that's a stereotype from in the 70s when they just kind of looked at it as really as offense and defense. I think in my era of football, and definitely get into the NFL, and even now, we understand that there's 3 phases to the game, and the special teams is just as important. And so you need kickers to make the extra points and field goals. You need punters that can give you some big punts when you need them and give you hang time to flip the field, which happened a little bit in Ohio State's game, and a lot of the games on Saturday. There were some really good punts on all of the games that I watched, including that Florida State game. there was some great flipping of the field by their punters on both sides. So, we understand that the game is 3 phases. So you really respect those guys. They get scholarships too. And it's a high pressure situation. I don't think that I could thrive in a situation like that. And I loved just the pressure that came along with playing in those situations. But it's one of those things where you understand going into it as a kicker, either you're the hero or the GOAT.
Yeah.
And
And
so
you've been
you take
standing
that.
there, you've been standing around maybe for 20 minutes,
Yeah,
doing nothing. In the NFL yesterday, former Notre Dame kicker, he got signed by the Saints and they traded Will Lutz away, Blake Groupie. He missed, the walk-off kick in Lambeau Field, like a
right.
47-yarder, and he kind of shanked it. But boy, he'd been standing around for 20 minutes, not warm up into a net, but you're right, it's boom or bust. And those
Yeah.
guys have to have like a different mental makeup than, at least if you get beat on a play, you're probably out there the next play or at least the next series, where these guys, might be the end of his time in New Orleans. One kick.
It could be. Yeah, one kick could get him out. They could be trying out kickers today because of that missed kick. Because 47 in the NFL is kind of that's expected. They expect you to make those. But when you've never been in that situation, you just need that experience. And a lot of guys will make them. Some guys will miss them. And now it's, can you come back? I think that's the bigger thing as an organization, especially if you're looking at like, I don't have anybody else to go to, especially with NFL kickers. Like, hey, I need you. Like, it's over. Let it go. Like, we're going to come back. You're going to get an opportunity to make that kick, and you may play that team again. So I need you to understand you're going to be back. You're going to be crucial for our success. So shake it off. Let's get you back out there and see and get your confidence right. So I think that's something that I understood with kickers is their psyche is going to be just as fragile as a defensive back or quarterback or running back or even a receiver who's dropping passes. So you need to figure out ways to make sure they stay involved with the team and feel like they're a part of the team, even when they're at their lowest moments.
That makes total sense. So what's number 3 on your takeaway list?
Number 3 for me is I've been watching everything, and we always talk about who has the best conference. In my opinion, right now, it's early. We're talking about 4 weeks in. Everybody, some conferences 4-0, but the Pac-12 is still the top conference, and it's crazy for me to think that the Pac-12 is going to look totally different. But they are the strongest conference this year. They're putting up points. They have teams that can score with Oregon, USC, Washington State, Washington. They have 4 teams in the top 10 and another 2 in the top 25, giving them a total of 6 teams in the top 25 altogether. So the Pac-12 is really that conference is just dominating, playing some really good football. And Colorado was in the top 25, or they would have 7 after that loss. And I think if they hadn't played as bad as they played, they might have stayed in the top 25. But we're going to see if they can bounce back. And so that kind of breaks me into number 2, which was a Colorado, Oregon fizzle, if I will. Like,
That's one way to put it. Yeah.
We thought it was going to be a lot of fireworks in there, a lot of high-powered offenses going toe-to-toe, and hopefully it was going to be a heavyweight battle. But it turned out to be a very lopsided game, which Oregon came out and they controlled all 3 phases of the game early on and often, and it just became just a blowout. And as Deion said it was a good old-fashioned butt kicking in all phases of the game.
I got 2 questions. I was watching that game, and it occurred to me really quickly that Oregon's, offensive and defensive line were just at a different level than Colorado's, and that dictates everything from there. Like Shedeur was clearly just uncomfortable the entire game. He was throwing off his back foot quite a bit. I don't blame him. He was getting chased around the pocket. It looked like Oregon, was an established program in the top 10 with their offensive and defensive line, whereas Colorado looked like a team last year that was 1-11, frankly, only on the lines, not the skill guys,
Right.
but the lines. So I had 2 questions that I was thinking about during that game. One, Oregon plays at a pace that is just incredible. They play so quickly. As a DB, did you ever play against a pace that quickly? And if you did or you didn't, what challenges does it present to you when a team is playing that fast?
Well, as a DB, we played a couple teams that ran that old run and shoot style offense. So if they got into a rhythm, you could get some very long drives. And I thought that's what Oregon did very, very well. They had sustained drives. They had 8+ 10 play drives that ended in touchdowns. And so the recipe for an upset is you either try to do one of 2 things. So when you have an offense like Colorado that has shown they could actually score points, you try to make it into a shootout. Because if you can go toe for toe with them and they score a touchdown, we score a touchdown, then the pressure ends up going on who can stop whom, who's going to have the ball last. And so being that it was in Oregon and Eugene, if you could have went toe to toe with them and said, hey, you score, we score, kind of one of those anything you can do, I can do better kind of scenarios, then you're like, okay, I got it. Because now you're thinking, as the home team, I can't make a mistake. Like they're going at us. Everything we throw at them, they have an answer for on the offense side of the ball. Colorado couldn't do that. And so then the other side of an upset is you try to get turnovers. You really slow down their offense. You kind of keep it a low scoring game like the Ohio State Notre Dame game was, where the crowd can't get too crazy because it's not that far out of whack, where it's not too far, not a stretch where, any big play can turn into we can win this game decidedly. And so Colorado was kind of stuck in no man's land. You had all the hoopla, all the hype coming to this game of Shador, Bo Nix, and Travis Hunter was going to be out of it. And you had Deion, that was kind of the person that everybody was kind of hating on, wasn't sure, should we root for him, should we not root for him? And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. But when it gets down to it, I think the coolest thing that you have to talk about is and some people talk about the pregame speech that was given. I had no problem with the pregame speech. It was between him and his coach and his players trying to get them motivated, right? Like Deion has given you a master class on how to make a program that was relegated to the bottom of the Pac-12 for years, that nobody thought had a chance to win any games at all. Coming off a 1-11 season, everybody was talking about them. And whether you like him or not, whether you like his personality, whether you think he's going about it the right way, it doesn't matter. They became relevant. People wanted to watch them. People wanted to come around and say, who is this guy? Who is this team that brought in 80 new players and flipped his roster using the transfer portal and all these things? Who's always out there talking? He's loud. He's boisterous. He talks a good game. They had the upset early. So you had all these things going on it, but people forgot that Oregon was a top 10 team. And so when you think about that, I think the coach was very respectful. He had nothing but praise to say about Deion, because it's true. Like when you think about it, Deion made a program that we hadn't talked about since Cordell Stewart threw a 70-yard bomb. I think that was the 20-year anniversary yesterday of when he threw that bomb against Michigan. And so
30,
when you think about
30 years,
30 years, right?
Marlon.
30 years, not 20. I'm dating myself. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
30 years since that play happened. So when you think about things like that, Colorado hasn't been a program that's been on anybody's top of mind for a very long time. And Deion has made them relevant, and we talk about them when we tune in to watch them. So it's been fun. It's been good for college football. And so now all of a sudden you got to play in between the lines. And I think Deion was very, as much as I love his personality, I think he also will accept defeat. And I thought he was very gracious in defeat. He said everything right. Like, it was a good old fashioned butt whipping. When you think about what happened, I mean, look at this. Like, they got dominated in all phases of the game. 30 first downs by Oregon. I mean, just crazy on what they were able to do against them. 522 yards of total offense. Unreal. And you didn't even get 200 yards in this game. I mean, it was a butt whooping from the beginning. That second quarter was where they exploded on Colorado. And it looked like they came up with a message to say, listen, I respect what Deion's doing, but don't forget, we also are a very good football team. They were good up front. They were good on the defensive front. They got pressure with their front four. Shador had to hold on to it. And that is something that Oregon has been good at. And I thought maybe they might have been able to get their playmakers running in space. The front four got after it. Shador had no time to find those open guys, and he held on to the ball because he knew he had to make big plays. And so when you look at all those things, this is where they lost it. They are just good old fashioned butt whooping. And then the special teams play. I think that was a turning point for me when I said, okay, Oregon's not playing. Like, Oregon is not worried about anything else, right? The fake punt from in their own yard. like you're at your 15-yard line. Like, this is crazy.
And the D lineman's 300 pounds, and he can run. So when you're watching that game, you've played in so many football games. Are there games where you just know you're getting your ass kicked, and there's really not much you can do? I mean, obviously you're going to compete. You're never going to quit. But man, you're just getting your butt whooped during the game.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in one of those games, and I'm sure we'll talk about it when we get up and talk about Happy Valley, because when you think about it, I think everybody in America, including myself, was like, okay, it's 13-0 at the end of the first quarter. If they can get a stop and get a touchdown. It's 13-7. That changes the complexity of the game. It changes how Oregon might try to approach what they're going to do on defense. And then who knows, if Bo Nix turns the ball over, if you get a fumble, if you stop them on downs, and all of a sudden it could be a 14-13 game or a 13-10 game. And now you're saying, okay, we're back in this. That didn't happen. That second quarter was just an onslaught. Oregon ran the ball. They got pressure with their front four. They didn't have to blitz. So when you don't have to blitz, you're dropping 7 guys back in coverage. So those quick passes that they're used to getting rid of and getting the ball out of Shador's hands quickly, they can't do that anymore because you have all the guys in coverage. So he has to hold it. And now he's trying to go through his progression. And they were winning against their tackles. They were winning against the guards. Like whatever stunt they did, they got pressure. When they didn't run any stunts, they got pressure on the ends. When they just ran for him, body on body, man on man, tackles, pressure the guards, and just ran him back into Shador's lap. So, I mean, it was a master class on just dropping in, taking away what they wanted to do. And Colorado never had an answer. It was just amazing to watch how they never had an answer on defense. They never had an answer on offense of how to get any rhythm going. And they only got rhythm late in the fourth quarters because Oregon caught off the dogs. They kind of just said, we're going to switch some guys out, put some guys in to get some experience. But that's when they kind of got started moving the ball.
Like in that game in Penn State, obviously we'll talk about that more when Ohio State plays Penn State. Do you get demoralized like as a player during the game?
Not so much you get demoralized. You just think like, man, I didn't think this was going to happen. And so you kind of say, man, I need to look at the film and figure out what happened. And I'm sure it was a little bit of shell shock because you go into the game thinking we can do this well against them, and it never happens. And then every time you turn around, it seems like they had big play after big play, big right. pass, big run.
And yeah, and their drives like, were their drives were demoralizing. You're right. It's not like it was like 8 shot plays. It was 11-yard run, 9-yard pass, 8-yard run, and they were just ramming it down their throat constantly. And that's got to just be, I mean, exhausting for the defense. And at that pace. And to get those sustained drives, like you said, 10 play drive, 12 play drive, then they run the D tackle on the fake punt. It's like, oh my God, like everything's going wrong here. Like it snowballs, right? And that's a loud place to play. It looks like a pretty hostile environment, obviously. And those guys, they were ready. They were ready to play. And credit to Dan Lanning. And I guess, the one question I had for you after the game, Twitter was a mess. The Deion haters were dunking on him. The Deion defenders were defending him. And I guess, and I don't know how much you want to talk about this or people be interested in. Race is clearly some of this, and it's generational. But then there's also the race piece of it. And it felt like the people who were hating on Deion were kind of gloating at the fact that, hey, this up and coming whippersnapper of a coach who doesn't look like us and doesn't talk like us and doesn't dress like us and sells sunglasses and all the rest, got his ass kicked. And I'm of the opinion, like you. I've never thought of Colorado Buffalo football in the last 30 years. So he's already won. He's already won. Big noon kickoffs going back there again next week for the Colorado USC game. Like he's already accomplished more than any other person who would have gone to Colorado could have possibly done. Lance Leopold is a fantastic coach. Went from UB to Kansas. Kansas, right. I believe now is 4-0. They're ranked.
Yep.
Nobody's talking about Kansas. Kansas isn't on ESPN. Kansas isn't getting College Game Day. Like. And Lance Leopold's an amazing coach, but Deion is Deion, and I feel like there's going to always be jealousy. There's going to always be haters. But, man, it's a tough look for some of these old, stodgy SEC white dudes to just be dunking on the guy after he loses. Plenty of people have gotten their ass kicked in Oregon, not just him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what's your take there?
I think for some people, absolutely, it's about race. Some people just don't want to see Deion succeed just because of the color of his skin. And so you can't change that. That's a personal thing that person and that individual has to deal with. I think there's also this group of people who Deion is a disruptor. And some people do not like disruptors, right? So as we mentioned, we haven't talked about Colorado and football in the last 30 years. And so Deion, being who he is, being that he's a Hall of Fame player, he hasn't changed. And I think when you disrupt, you have to come in and do everything differently than what you have been accustomed to before. Mind you, Deion is a player that excelled in the old archaic system, right? He went to Florida State. Mm-hmm. He got coached by Bobby Bowden. He went to a university where you had to conform. You had to talk a certain way. And he was able to navigate that and still be Deion and create this alter ego known as Prime. And all of a sudden, now you got Deion with the gold chains and the sunglasses. He's been unapologetically himself since he's been at Florida State. He went to the Atlanta Falcons, was Deion, and then won championships with the 49ers and with the Cowboys, was Deion, and with the Ravens, and was Deion, and was Prime, and then became this coach and this icon and a Hall of Fame player. But he's always been Deion, primetime Deion. And so people forget who he is, and now he's the head coach. And so he's coming in and bucking the system that he became who he was. And people don't like that because people don't like change. A lot of people just don't like the change. They don't like it. Because now it makes them say, okay, well, could I have done differently? Anything in my own career? Can I be like Deion? Can I go in and talk the way he's talking? Can I do what he does? And for a lot of people, the answer is no. And so for a long time, you had to conform. Didn't matter. We can go back and forth on race and everything else. But I would say from just coaches, whether you're black, white, brown, purple, blue, yellow, there was a way you had to conduct yourself as a head coach. You had to talk a certain way. You had to dress a certain way. You had to go about recruiting a certain way. And now Deion is taking advantage of the portal. He's getting transfers. And when you think about college football, the portal is free agency. And when you think about Alabama, when you think about all those schools that historically have been good, what made them good was they were able to stockpile 5-star, 4-star, blue chip athletes and just have a pipeline of continuous people that says, we don't go out and have to recruit, we reload. When you have the transfer portal, those guys leave. And so now Deion is creating a destination that people like, if I can't stay here and get playing time, I'm leaving. And then that's going to cause issues for those big time schools, those big time programs that have all the NIL dollars as well. And they're saying, oh, wait a minute. Well, I can go here where there's a coach that's going to get me clicks because social media is going to follow him. People are going to be looking at seeing what he's doing. He's getting commercials and all these things. So now people are going to say, you know what, I may want to go there. I may want to transfer. So he's disrupting the college football system, and people are getting threatened by that because there's dominoes that fall because if he's successful, which he is so far, guys that are, hey, you know what, I'm not playing here. And there's guys that are going to leave from Alabama and may leave from Texas and may leave from USC and maybe consider going and playing for Deion at Colorado because they know, hey, I'm going to be on TV. Game day has already been there this past week and going again there again this week. You're going to be seen. There's going to be spotlights. There's going to be NFL scouts at this game. So I have a new pathway to get to my dream of playing in the NFL. And people just don't like that because he's different. And now they're evening the playing field. And by the way, he also looks like a lot of the people that he's trying to get to come and play there. So there's a relatability factor because he can speak the culture and maybe understand them a little bit differently. Maybe a coach from a different background may not be able to understand them. And so now people are like, oh my gosh, here we go. So there's all these things that are going on that people just don't like. But at the end of the day, the disrupting power of Deion and what he's trying to build is clearly on display. It's a master class on how you take and rebrand an organization that was 1-11 and make them relevant, even though they had got blown out. I don't expect them to win this week against USC. What I'm looking for is them to play a lot better on offense and see if they can score some points and stay in the game. And then you're looking at them being 3-2. But for me, I think we talked about it earlier in one of the episodes. For me, a win for him is if they become bowl eligible. That's a win because if they get 7 wins this year, they become bowl eligible. And I think that they'll get 7 wins and they'll be bowl eligible. And that's a huge turnaround from 1-11 to bowl eligible. Yeah, that is amazing job as a first year coach.
This is a clunky analogy, but some of those like older, the Brian Kellys, the Jimbo Fishers, some of the older like SEC coaches, he's coming for their job. And I would assume at some point he's going to probably end up in the SEC somewhere because that's where the money is. That's where the exposure is. And once, Colorado's going to the Big 12 next year, whereas, Texas, Oklahoma are going to the SEC, and then the West Coast schools are all going to the Big 10. So I assume, and I don't know if the Big 10 is necessarily ready for Deion, but it feels like the SEC is where he's going to naturally land at one of those places, Texas A&M, Florida, one of those places in the next couple of years who have Texas A&M, it feels like, their budget is unlimited. And if you're Jimbo Fisher, if you're Brian Kelly, if you're this miserable, cranky coach who's done things your own way for 25 years. Now, if you're Nick Saban or Kirby Smart, you can argue, hey, man, come here because you're going to go to the NFL. Like those guys are on a different level. But you're Brian Kelly, you're Jimbo Fisher, you're Billy Napier at Florida. You're one of these guys who doesn't have the credentials of Nick Saban or the guy or the Georgia coach. Oh my God, Kirby Smart.
Yeah,
you got to be worried. You got to be worried because this dude's like the hot girl at the party, right? He's the hot girl at the party, and all the guys are looking and it's a clunky analogy, but it's really true. Like he's getting all the attention, and you're right. Like these kids, why wouldn't you want to play for him if they're good and they're competitive? Why in the world would you not want to play for him if you could? Like I can't see any downside. He seems fun. The program's fun. You're going to be on TV every single week. Like there's no downside. And unless it's Georgia or Alabama or Ohio State, I wouldn't want to. I'd rather play for Prime than Jim Harbaugh. Good Lord. Like that's not even a question in my mind. So
I mean, how I feel about Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey.
But you better if you're Brian Kelly, you're Jim Harbaugh, you're Jimbo Fisher, you're some of these older guys. You better keep winning. Because it's like you better keep working out because the younger, more attractive person is coming right behind you. And
yeah, but I don't know if I'm worried if I'm those guys, right? Because they have the resume behind them. As long as they continue to win, there's no issue. I think Deion is an anomaly all by himself. And to your point, I don't know what conference he's going to go to. SEC maybe. I mean, with Mel Tucker being out, it will be very interesting to see what happens. If Michigan State may try to say, hey, Deion, what's your buyout clause? Because this contract was like 5 years. I want to say 28 or 29 million, maybe close to 30 million. So that might be a very palatable buyout clause for a school like Michigan State in the Big Ten to say, let's gauge the interest of what if Deion would be willing to leave there. I personally don't think he would leave because I think what he's trying to build is kind of cool and what he's trying to do. But there aren't that many people that's Deion. And so I think the bigger issue is as you start seeing more and more former players get into coaching, I think this is where people are worried about the disrupting force because there are other Hall of Fame coaches that might have a similar personality or a similar style as Deion that can come in and have more relatability to players and understand what it's like. Because Deion won at all levels, won in high school, won in college at Florida State, won in the NFL, played Major League Baseball, Hall of Fame player. So he can also give you all the ins and outs of how to navigate a childhood dream and what you have to do on and off the field to get to that dream. And then also tell you straight up, hey, listen, you're not going to make it at the next level, or you may get there and you're going to spend there 2 years. So have a plan of what your exit strategy is going to be when you're done playing. And so that makes him very unique in my eyes as a coach. And that's going to make him somebody that if I have a son in my position of, hey, you have some choices, and if Colorado is recruiting you, you have to listen because he's going to do right by you. I think there's a story that came out today where Travis Hunter at the law said, you got to let me go play. And Deion's like, no, your future is more brighter than that. Like, no, and that's what you want because there's some coaches that won't save the player from themselves. Hey, you want to play, go ahead and play. And Deion's like, no, like this is a game, get healthy. The risk outweigh the good of you coming back and trying to play 2 weeks removed from an injury like that. So, he's already looking out, and that bodes well for him going forward because there are coaches like, hey, if he can play, tape him up, do whatever you can. Yeah. And so I think it's going to endear him to other players, but it's going to be interesting just to see what it all looks like. But there's no prime. There's nobody that I know of that's Deion, and that effect of Deion is going to be really interesting going forward. Again, I think, and we'll talk about this at some point later in the year, I don't know if he goes to the SEC or anything else. If I'm him, I write it out, and then I wait to see when the super conference gets built because there's going to be a super conference, and all the Ohio States, Michigans, all the SEC schools that are vying for a national championship, they're all just going to form a 2018 conference and play each other. And I think Notre Dame gets added to that, and they get their own TV network, and they do some interesting things, and that's how it plays out. And then now you have a unique farm league to the NFL and a different pipeline than just playing college football.
I think you're right. I agree with you down the road. I have successally managed to put off for 34 minutes now talking about the game. I know
you wanted to kind of not talk about that game.
Well, I've done. I have some experience doing this now, so we're gonna let Marlon have his have his rant here from his number one key takeaway from last weekend. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Not even the key rant. I think, we talked about this. We texted it to each other during the game. It was a really good game. I think when you look at this, And I'll preface this by saying the new clock rules, because we talked about one of the keys is, can Ohio State get some quick plays and score, because historically they don't win the time of possession. And so this is one of the first 4-0 teams that I could think of with the new clock rules that has yet to win the time of possession for any game that they've been in. And again, another week where they didn't win the time of possession, where Notre Dame had the ball for almost 10 more minutes. But I thought they were very even. Ohio State really converted some third downs and really just kind of kept some drives going, did a good job of flipping the field. I mean, pretty even if you think about it, where they were going. But that last drive when they had to win it, and thought about what Notre Dame could do. I think I sent you the text when I said, that interception could come back and haunt them. And when he didn't make it, I'm like, oh.
DJ Brown. Man. I mean, you've got that ball in your hands. Like as soon as that play happens, you got to feel it on the field too, right? Like that's such an opportunity. That's right in your hands. I know you say you can bounce back, the next play, the play after. That's tough though. The game is over. They had a 4th and 7 that they converted earlier in that drive. Then they had that, and then they come back with the 3rd and 18 at the 20 after the grounding penalty. And I'll never understand what defense, Notre Dame was in on that play to give up, basically a 19-yard reception on 3rd and 18 with 20 seconds left. Like, oh my goodness.
It was just interesting. I think they only had 10 people on that 3rd and 19 as well, if I remember correctly. And so what you're looking for is you're trying to run. You don't want to give them anything deep. So your safety is going to be deep, and you're kind of trying to run a man under, and you're hoping there's a linebacker that's going to get deep to take away that throw. Clearly, he had a huge lane to throw into, and there was supposed to be an underneath guy to make that throw a little bit harder, and that person wasn't there. And so that was one of the first key breakdowns that you saw on that defense. I wasn't sure if they were trying to play. I would have played 2-man underneath that and ran a little man under and said, hey, listen, if he goes deep, safety's going to sit there and get it. They played a little different combination cover. They were over the top of it, trying to come underneath it. And there was no linebacker there, nobody in that throwing lane. So that's an easy read by McCord. He got it to Ibuka and first down. And so you look at that. I think I was going back and forth, like, what are you calling it? Because I think we had a turnover on downs where we went for it on 4th down a series before, and they run a jet sweep. I'm like, dude, you got a 5'11", 6 foot, 235-pound running back, and it's 4th and 1, and you get cute and run a jet sweep.
I was thrilled. I was thrilled the ball didn't go to Travion Henderson on that play. I was yelling at the TV, just make the quarterback make a play. I wanted them to just have to make him throw the ball or a jet sweep. Just make sure the running back doesn't beat you. And it was the same thing for me on the last play of the game. Like, I don't understand if you're Notre Dame. Now, clearly they only had 10 guys, so they were missing a DN, which is pretty critical on a play like that. I make the quarterback beat me on that play. I load the box. There's no way that I'm presenting a front where Ohio State feels comfortable running into it on the last play of the game. And with 3 seconds left, no timeouts didn't matter anymore. Like Ryan Day said in his post-game thing that I want to talk to you about. It was a little bit over the top, in my opinion. But, like, I don't understand. Like you crowd the box, you make the kid beat you with a throw. If he beats you with a throw, okay, so be it. But to let Travion Henderson just, kind of just muscle his way into the end zone, I just feel like it was a complete letdown from the defensive coaching staff on that last drive.
I wouldn't call it a letdown. I think it's more of I think about, we go NFL style. Think Super Bowl when the Patriots and Marshawn Lynch should have been handed the ball from Seattle, and they get cute and they throw the ball. Too many variables, too many things can go wrong, because now you play right into the defense and the defensive back's hand. And Malcolm made a great break on the ball and got an interception. So same thinking here. I think what I was worried about with, you put it in McCord's hand, was he was late on his throws. So on the previous play, they did a rollout and he had the flat coming open, but he threw the ball late. Like, that ball has to be, as soon as he's going into the break and he makes that plant cut to come out to the out, the ball's got to be out of your hand and going there, and it's got to be low and away, and you're allowing the outbreaker from the slot to come in and go low on this ball and get it. He threw it high, he threw it late, he had broke, and then he turned, he sprinted to the side, the pylon. You really can't fit it in. So I think Ryan Day kind of said, all right, listen, it's 3 seconds left. We know this is it. So you call a play there. I was okay with the pass play. I just thought McCord needed to get the ball out of his hand a little sooner on that play. And then you had Chip train him. I'm like, look, give the ball to train him. Like, you had Estimate all game popping runs and doing everything. We had a back that was the same size, that had the same breakaway ability. You needed 1 yard. And finally we lined up. Now, it didn't hurt that you guys had one less guy that should have been there.
You think?
Because that's what I'm going to run the ball. Hey, there should be a defensive end here.
Man,
tackle, tight end, get down.
I was yelling at the screen. The formation looked so odd pre-snap, and I'm like, I guess I didn't assume they had 10 guys in the field. I guess you just take it for granted that they have 11. And I'm like, what in the world formation is this? Like, it made it just didn't. It visibly looked wrong from the beginning. And again, you kind of take for granted that your defensive coordinator will have 11 guys in the field, but obviously that didn't happen. Can you explain to me Ohio against the world, please? Because I don't understand it.
So Ohio against the world is kind of, when you think about it, listen, right? There's just a lot of Buckeye hate all across the world, right? So you start the preseason, Ohio State is ranked number 3 in the preseason. They beat a Big Ten opponent, although they didn't blow them out. They win 20-3. They drop. They come back. They beat Youngstown State. They win 35-7. They drop again. You come back. You beat Western Kentucky, or you beat Youngstown State, like they scored 10 points. You come back. You beat Western Kentucky 35-7 or 60-10. You still drop. So there's always been this Buckeye hate. They don't look good. They don't look this. Even though when they beat Western Kentucky or Youngstown State 35-7, Michigan won the same week 35-7. Same score, same identical stats, and they stayed number 2. So there's always been this hate against Ohio State that has been perceived against the media. There's a bias that people are like, I don't know about Ohio State. And it goes even into the comments of Lou Holtz, which I understand Ryan Day's response because I have all the respect for Lou Holtz, being what he is able to achieve, being that he won a national championship at Notre Dame, being that he's considered one of the winningest coaches at Notre Dame, and all that he was able to accomplish. There's this unwritten rule. We talk about it when Norvell made the comments about Deion. As a head coach, as a former head coach, you don't come in and say Ohio State is soft. I mean, because pretty much he said Ohio State's soft. Notre Dame's got the better offensive line. Notre Dame's got the better defensive line. It's going to be that team's not physical. That team's not this. Like, that's not something that you want to be said about a former head coach, because you don't want to have the bulletin board material that goes along with that. So you don't think Ohio State was fired up about that. And then think about it. Like if I'm Ryan Day, Lou Holtz is somebody that I probably looked up to and said, I want to take some of his good qualities and add that to my coaching style. And then you have somebody who might've been an idol, somebody you looked up to, come back and pretty much say, yeah, your team is soft. And so most teams try to build their identity around some type of personality trait from the coach. So pretty much on a backhanded way, you're saying Ryan Day's soft, and that these Ohio State teams aren't physical, and that they're going to get out physical by Notre Dame. And so when it didn't happen, and they were able to go toe for toe, silver bullets flying around, I thought Ohio State and Jim Knowles had a great defensive strategy. I was worried about all the underneath coverages that they were playing and kind of letting Notre Dame kind of, hey, here's a third and 6 they were completing. Here's a 3rd and 5, but they never got a shot. They never got the opportunity to really take a long shot down the field. And so when you start looking at those things, you're like, man, like, could we kind of keep this game close? Again, when I talked about earlier, the anatomy of an upset, even though we were 3-point favorites, I think, going into this one, when you talk about the anatomy of an upset, you have to keep it close. You have to put it back onto the home team to kind of say, don't make any mistakes. You have to be perfect. They took away what Hartman likes to do, because most quarterbacks want to throw the ball deep. They want to make a big play because it gets the crowd going. It gets them going. It gets the people around them going, like, because now I have to decide what I have to do on offense. Am I going to play man-to-man? Am I going to bring pressure? And then I can exploit a one-on-one matchup with your big wide receiver against some of the undersized corners that Ohio State had. And Ohio State was always able to get the right amount of pressure, stop them when they needed to, stop the right run when they needed to, and never really give up a really big home run play. And then when it came down to it, Notre Dame couldn't execute. They could never get what they needed to do, stop them on 3rd down or 4th down, and vice versa. Could never really sustain a drive long enough to say we're going to be up in this game and really take control of it. And Ohio State it was a master class on just really exploiting and doing some things. And McCord grew up. We got to watch his young quarterback grow up right before our eyes.
All right, a couple pushbacks here, okay, because you're my friend. First of all, Lou Holtz is 86.
It doesn't matter.
I get it. And you know what that reminded me of? It's funny. And another Ohio coach, if you remember last year in the NFL playoffs, Zach Taylor used the Bills-Chiefs neutral site game where they were starting to sell the tickets in Atlanta. And remember how Cincinnati came in here and said, "Oh, everybody is already penciling the game," which was factually incorrect because the NFL was selling tickets for the AFC Championship game in Cincinnati as well if they would have played Jacksonville. But Zach Taylor used that, and it fueled the team and the team. So I get it. I get the whole, you're going to use any bulletin board material, and Lou Holtz shouldn't have said it. It was a stupid thing to say. Like, and Lou Holtz of all people, I don't know if you remember his tenure at Notre Dame. That's when I was growing up, and my dad loved Lou Holtz more than maybe life itself. He would profusely, to the point of like ridiculousness, always praise the other team. Like Notre Dame would be playing Navy, and you'd think that Navy was like 1960s Navy with Roger Staubach. Like people would always joke about how Lou Holtz would constantly talk up the opponents, like they were the 85 Bears rather than, a 25-point underdog. So him saying that makes me think maybe Lou Holtz has lost his fastball a little bit at 86. The other thing is, I guess I don't understand who is biased against Ohio State, because I don't love Ohio State. I don't really like Ohio State, but I respect Ohio State. Who is this imaginary like bias against Ohio?
Imaginary. I mean, you can go listen to Joe Klatt and his podcast, and he'll explain it really well. There's just been this hate, whether it's Mark May and just media types. People don't want to see Ohio State be successful. And
why do you think that is?
Honestly, I mean, I think it, and not just Ohio State. I think it also goes to other Big Ten teams. Like they just don't want to see Big Ten teams really get the success and then go into the college football playoffs and then end up losing. I think because of the overall record of what happens when they get into those situations. The SEC has been considered the most dominant conference when it comes to winning those national championships. So people kind of like, we want to see something different. We want to see a different color. We want to see a different uniform. We want to see somebody other than Ohio State or Michigan playing in these type of games. And really, there's nobody else in the Big Ten that really, besides those, and sometimes Penn State might get in there, but same result, right? Like, hey, they get there, they don't win it all. Except Ohio State did win it all in 2014. So I will throw that out there. They did win the first college football playoff.
That's interesting.
Under the new format.
I guess I had never
there's that.
Yeah, I guess I had really never considered that. I mean, follow college football really closely, and I never, this Ohio against the world thing, I'd heard it, but I didn't realize like what a mantra and what a what a call to action it is. The good news is now, Marlon, I have become the biggest Ohio State fan for the rest of this season.
Right.
I need Ohio State to win out. Notre Dame needs Ohio State to win out. The good news from my perspective as a Notre Dame fan, they only dropped 2 spots. They're 11.
Right.
Clearly, I think any neutral observer would say that was a coin flip game. That's a game where if you ran that game back in a neutral site, that is not the Fiesta Bowl in 2016 where Ohio State ran Notre Dame off the field. That was the game Jalen Smith tore up his knee. That game wasn't close from the beginning. Ohio State outclassed them. Notre Dame, this is the first game, like I said in the very beginning, it's the first time in one of these big games over the past 10 years at Notre Dame where I felt like they were as good. They didn't win, but they were clearly in the same league as Ohio State. So the good news, Notre Dame has a tough game this week. Feels like kind of a letdown game. They play at Duke. College game day is actually going to be there. Duke is ranked like 18, and Duke waxed 17. Clemson. 17. Yeah. And then the big one for Notre Dame 3 weeks from now is USC comes to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame has to win that game. Now the margin of error is now 0. And I need Ohio State to run the table. I need Ohio State to look good, to beat that team up north, to beat Penn State. And if they end up going 12, 13-0, obviously that takes one playoff spot, but that loss from Notre Dame will just look better and better and better throughout the season. So I am now with you on the Ohio State, against
jump
the
on
world.
This Buckeye bandwagon.
I'm in. Until Notre Dame loses another one, I will be a very interested observer of the Buckeyes for the rest of the year, and I am all in on the train.
Come on in.
That's right.
Let's go, Buckeye. Let's go on that Buckeye bandwagon.
So before we wrap up this episode, first of all, I'd like everybody to like and subscribe, please. It helps the algorithm, YouTube. Let us know that we're doing a good job and push it to new people. I know you said you had 3 games that you were looking forward to this weekend. I don't know if Notre Dame Duke was one of them. Your Buckeyes are on a bye, and I guess I just wanted to ask you real quick, what you guys usually do during the week off?
So during the week off, what normally happens as a player is you get an extra week to get ahead of the game, the opponent you're going to play next. So you're going to kind of come in, you're going to get the game plan. We're going to do this. And then it turns into more of you're going to keep the same routine. You're going to practice, but you don't necessarily have to do all the late meetings and all the late prep that you need to. If you got any injuries, I'm going to spend some extra time in the training room. If I've got little dings here and there, I may not even practice that week. They may say, stay off of it. You're going to do some extra conditioning and then get the hamstring taken care of. Get some treatment on your ankle. Take care of this shoulder if it's nagging you. And really, you try to heal up. And so you're going to do all those things. Of course, we're going to go to class. Hey, Mom. So we're going to make sure we do all those things, right? Do that. And then you get the weekend off. So then it's kind of one of those things where instead of getting ready to travel and getting prepped to say, okay, we're going to do this on a Friday night if it's a home game, or get ready to fly somewhere, depending on where you're traveling. You're going to say, okay, I'm going to finish my practice on Friday. Generally, the last practice is going to be Thursday. You might have to come in and do a little lift or do something, and then you're going to get either Friday, Saturday, Sunday off and come back in on Monday, or sometimes you get Friday, Saturday, pop in on a Sunday, make sure everybody's good, and then get Monday off, and then hit your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday prep to get ready for the week. So I liked on the bye week, I like kind of sometimes coming in on a Sunday just to break up the routine and come in and relax a little bit. It just depends on with Ohio State being 4-0. I would guess they're going to give them come in on Friday, done early. You get Saturday, Sunday off, come back in on a Monday, ready to go. So I would go see friends. I had a really good friend who played at Wittenberg. So if I could get down there, I would try to go see him. If it was his bye week, he'd come up, we'd hang out. You might hang out with some friends or go to a party that weekend, but I would stay low key, not too much things to do, just stay out of trouble. And then get ready for the following week and your opponent for that upcoming week.
Did you watch college ball all day Saturday or no?
Oh yeah, you watch the games. You got to watch opponents, see who's there. Like you watch if whoever that upcoming opponent is going to be, you're going to watch them and see what they're looking like. Kind of get a hey, and I think Ohio State has Maryland coming up after this, I believe.
Maryland.
Talia. Tua's little brother has been playing pretty well, so you might try to watch him, see how he's playing, get a little extra film study in there, and then watch him watch that game if it's going to be on Big Ten Network, and check that out, and then just relax. That was I wanted to relax and just take care of any little extra bumps and bruises, and then get mentally right for the next game.
So no big keggers.
No big keggers for me. None for me.
Were there guys that partied like on the bye week?
Some guys did. I mean, I always said, it was more of a just kind of make sure you're ready to go. Don't do anything too crazy. I was never a big drinker in college, so that wasn't really my thing. So I might go out a little bit. You might see me I was that dude that if I went out, I might have one beer and I would have that beer all night. Like, you good? Hey, I'm good. I got this over here. And that would be it. Like sipping on a Heineken all night. Like it's warm. Like I'm not even going to drink this. It's nasty anyway. And that would be it. Like, so I would look like I'm drinking. You good? Yeah, I'm good. I just got another one. And that's it. And so I would fool them and make them think I'm good. And drinking all night. And I might have one and sip on it for the rest of the night.
Well, that's why you got to the next level. Obviously that's some dedication and focus on what the bigger goals were. So what are your three games to watch for this week?
Well, first of all, I'm looking to see how Colorado bounces back. Now, I don't think that they win this game against USC, but what I really want to see is if their offense can come back and score some points and just get that continuity. I want to see them get back to being explosive and see if they can turn it into a track meet where I do think USC wins a game, but I just want to see mentally how they bounce back because that was a shellacking. And they looked kind of like starstruck and teary-eyed and looked like they didn't really know how to respond to an onslaught of a team in Oregon and a juggernaut. So I want to see them just bounce back and play a lot better this week. I had your Notre Dame Duke matchup because that's a bounce back game for Notre Dame. They needed to really come back and show that they can do it. And they played a tough physical game against Ohio State. And Duke is going to try to do the same thing and make it a physical game and get after them. And I just want to see how they play and respond to that. And then actually the game that I'm really interested in seeing the most, which is crazy. You talked about Lance Leipold. I'm looking forward to seeing that Kansas-Texas game. That's going to be crazy.
Kansas is fun. They
are fun to watch. They are fun to watch. Right now, they're averaging 37.8 points a game. They're 4-0. They're pretty balanced when you think about it. Like this is crazy because I had to go look at their stats because I've been watching them. Like they're ranked number 24. Texas is number 3 right now. They average 245 yards passing, and they average 217 yards rushing the game, which is crazy to me. Like, talk about a balanced offense. And so far on this 4-0 season and campaign they have on, they've had 101 first downs. Can you listen to this split?
That's crazy.
47 yards. 47 of the 101 first downs have been by passing. 46 of the 101 first downs have been by rushing, and they got 8 more by penalty. So talk about a balanced offense. Like they can go either way. Now Texas also scores a lot of points. They average about 35 points a game. They average about 275, 280 yards passing, and they only average 155 yards rushing. So it's going to be interesting to see if that Texas defense can slow down this Kansas offense. But again, it should be a shootout, and I love watching shootouts. So this game is my must-watch TV because I think it could be a barn burner, and I want to see who. It might come down to whoever has the ball last is going to win that game.
I like it. Before we go, a shout out to our guest last week, Jeff Burris.
Yeah,
his Raging Cajuns knocked off University of Buffalo, a high-scoring game shootout.
Yeah,
I got two for you, Marlon. I was camping last weekend. We go camping for 5 weeks in the fall, and I found myself up late, and I was watching Air Force and San Jose State. Air Force had one of the most dominant second-half performances I've ever seen. They held the ball for 8 minutes. They ran right down the field and scored. Didn't throw a pass, obviously. Scored. San Jose went 3 and out in 30 seconds. Air Force got the ball back and had the entire rest of the quarter and scored another touchdown on the last play of the third quarter. San Jose State had 30 seconds of possession in the third quarter, got outscored 14-0, ended up getting outscored 28-0 in the second half, and got waxed by this Air Force team, which is now on the periphery of the top 25. They're disciplined. Obviously, They're a military school. They always are. But they're this year's Navy. Like, their quarterback is good. Their line play is good. Their defense is passable. They absolutely they imposed their will on San Jose State, and San Jose State just quit. And it was amazing to watch at 1 a.m. Like, Air Force it was 5 yards every play. Fullback dive, triple option right, triple option left, fullback dive. Like, as a San Jose State fan, player, or coach, it must have been the most maddening thing of all time. Luckily, my $50 was on Air Force, so I enjoyed it. The second one for you, and I don't know if you've seen him yet, Anthony Calandro, the quarterback at Virginia. He is the roller coaster of all roller coasters. The dude has 7 interceptions in his last 2 fourth quarters. He threw 3 interceptions a week ago against Maryland. And this week they were playing NC State, having a good game. He threw 4 picks in the fourth quarter. They then come back. They tie the game, or they score a touchdown. They need a 2-point conversion to tie. The offensive lineman gets a unsportsmanlike taunting penalty before the 2-point conversion. So they got to run the 2-point conversion from the 17-yard line. They make it. He throws a great ball. What does he do? He rips his helmet off. He poses.
I saw that.
He gets a personal foul penalty. So then they got a kickoff from the 20. NC State gets the ball, goes down the field with 30 seconds left, and kicks a field goal and wins the game. This dude, he is must-watch TV, must-watch for all the wrong reasons. Like, he's like schizophrenic on the field. He's so much fun to watch because you have no idea where the ball's going when it's coming out of his hand.
That's crazy. I remember seeing that ripping. I watched some of that game when I was watching the Colorado beat down, and I flipped back and forth like, man, they were playing pretty well. And then I'd say, oh, this is a blowout. So I turned that game off and tried to find something else. And then I looked back like, what did he do? And then I saw the highlight of him ripping off the helmet. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, you have to be more disciplined.
Cost his team the game because they got in the field goal range. Yeah, and then they blocked the first field goal, but the guy was called for leaping over the center. So they had 3 personal foul penalties in the last minute of the game. Unbelievable.
That's crazy. That is unbelievable.
It was college football, though. It was so college football. So
that's why I love it. Week in and week out, you don't know what it's going to look like, and every play it matters so much, and every game matters, and that's why I love college football.
Absolutely. All right, we'll leave it there, and thankfully I got through this episode, and Marlon's a class act and a good guy for not making me wear red, but I say from now on, go Irish and go Buckeyes.
That's right. Go Buckeyes.
All right. Take care, bud.
You too.